Laurie LaChance is Thomas College's fifth president and the first female and alumna to lead the college in its 125-year history. From 2004 to 2012, Laurie served as president and CEO of the Maine Development Foundation. Prior to that, she served 3 governors as the Maine state economist, and before joining state government, she served as the corporate economist at Central Maine Power Company. A frequent author and speaker on leadership, education, and the economy of Maine, she holds an undergraduate degree from Bowdoin College, an MBA from Thomas College, and an honorary Doctor of Humane Letters from the University of Maine at Presque Isle. Laurie was inducted into the Maine Women's Hall of Fame in 2014 and has been the recipient of several awards, including being recognized by Maine Magazine as one of the 50 Mainers charting the state's future and making the Maine Biz Next list as a trailblazer in her industry. In November of 2018, Laurie was inducted into the Maine Business Hall of Fame. She chairs the board of Educare Central Maine, is a trustee of Foxcroft Academy, a board member of Educate Maine, served on the board of the New England Board of Higher Education's Commission on Higher Education and Employability, and was elected to the board of Maine Employers Mutual Insurance Company, MEMIC, in June of 2018. I'm exhausted in just thinking about all of these responsibilities and accomplishments that Laurie LaChance has. But the great thing about her is that she is one of us in the state of Maine, and she has had so much success, and she's such a role model. So I'm delighted to have her as my guest on the PR Maven podcast today. Welcome to the PR Maven podcast, a podcast all about growing your network and building your brand through traditional and digital networking techniques. I'm Nancy Marshall, the PR Maven and CEO of Marshall Communications. I've been strengthening brands through PR for over 35 years, and now I'm celebrating the success of executives, influencers, business owners, and entrepreneurs from all around the world, all of whom have cultivated their brands and broadened their networks through traditional and digital networking methods. Each week, I interview one of these interesting and influential individuals and provide an opportunity for you, the PR Maven Nation, to gain insights from their strategies and stories. So stay tuned for this week's episode, and thanks for listening. So, Laurie, to kick things off, tell us about your career and how you got into it in the first place.
My career, well, I frequently call it my unintentional path. When I graduated from Bowdoin, I, for the first time, bought myself a pair of high heels and a woolen suit. I remember we went to Bangor over Christmas break my senior year.
To the mall, the Bangor Mall?
Not the mall. Wasn't really going. Maybe it had started then, but it was downtown Bangor to one of the nice clothing stores, and I bought one wool suit and a pair of heels to match it, and then I had to practice for my interviews because I'd never walked on heels before. So it was quite an adventure, but somehow, even with all that lack of experience, I was offered a job at Central Maine Power Company and started there in a management training program. Had a wonderful experience there because that introduced me to all aspects of the company, and I was able to meet the people in the different departments and find out where I'd be a good fit. So I started in the rate department and then pretty soon had the opportunity to become an economist and do forecasting in the company. Started doing that and took over that role and went up through to be corporate economist through my 10 years there. From there, there was a change at the state planning office, and they invited me to come over and be the state economist. It was the tail end of the McKernan administration. So I did a year and a half under McKernan, not really thinking that it was an appointed position, and there was a very good chance I might not be reappointed with the new governor. But fortunately, it was Angus King that was elected, and he reappointed me for both of his terms. And one more changing of the guard with John Baldacci, who also reappointed me for the first year and a half of his administration before I was offered the job as the president of the Maine Development Foundation.
And you were also earning your Master's of Business Administration at Thomas College, because I was doing mine at the same time.
Yes, I actually earned that while I was at Central Maine Power Company. And it took me a long time because I was working very long hours. But Thomas was very flexible and very accepting of my crazy schedule. And I loved getting my MBA from Thomas because it was fun. It was learning that was very relevant to what I was doing. And it was a great chance to get to know all kinds of other professionals, and just loved that. And that was a really important step for me professionally, which I hadn't realized at the time, but I'm so glad that I did it when I did.
Yeah, I felt the same way about earning my MBA at Thomas because Sugarloaf actually sponsored me. I was working at Sugarloaf at the time, so I was commuting to Waterville down from Carrabassett Valley once a week for probably, I think, 6 years. Yeah, so it was a long haul. And I did it through a couple pregnancies there, too. And I remember one night I fell asleep in class, and Professor Martin Bressler called me out at the end and said, Nancy, you were nodding off. And I said, I'm sorry, I've been working all day. And then I think class was from 6 to 9 p.m. on a January night. And I said, I drove down and I said, I'm tired. I'm 3 months pregnant.
It is not easy, but it gave me a real appreciation for how hard it is to be an adult learner and to put yourself through those paces. But it's one of the best investments you can make in yourself.
Yes, exactly. Because education is something that nobody can ever take away from you.
Ever take away. And in fact, I graduated in 1992 with my MBA from Thomas. And in 1993, I was offered the job as state economist. Realistically, without my MBA, I probably never would have been named state economist. It required a higher level of training. And it was the same with the president of MDF. I would never have gotten it without my MBA.
And certainly the president of Thomas College.
Certainly the president of Thomas College would never have happened if I hadn't graduated from Thomas with my MBA. So it was one of those serendipitous things.
Pretty good investment.
It was a great investment. I highly recommend it to everyone. But certainly a strange path, if you will, to a college presidency.
So where we left off, where I interrupted about the MBA at Thomas, you were still at MDF, and then you were sought out to be the president at Thomas?
I was. It was a very unusual situation. I was actually loosely on the search team because I was on Thomas's board at the time, and they were searching for a new president, doing a national search with a search firm, and they had narrowed the field from over 100 candidates, virtually all of them with their PhDs, and they had gotten down to the 6 for the airport interviews. This is the crazy world of higher ed because it's supposed to be a big secret when you apply for or get interviewed to be a president. It's a big secret so that it doesn't get back to your institution that you interviewed. So they hold it at the airport, and people fly in at different times and come in through different doors and exit through different doors so you don't see each other. It's so funny. Of course, what had happened for me is they had gotten down to these 6 individuals that they were flying in for these interviews. And the search firm had been doing due diligence calls for references to find out about these top 6 people. And it just so happened in one of those phone calls, they were talking with Chuck Hewitt, who was at that point working as the chief operating officer at Jackson Lab. Well, I had worked with Chuck when he worked for Angus in his administrations. So Chuck was talking to them and saying, oh, yeah, this person is really great, but why don't you consider Laurie? She's on your board. She knows the state of Maine really well. Why don't you consider her? So the headhunter went back and asked the chairs of the board, what do you want me to do with this information? And they're like, well, yeah, let's interview her. And so they called me, and I had a couple of key questions for them. One being, are you serious? I'm not a PhD. I have never worked in higher ed, please don't waste my time or yours if you're not serious about this. And they said, oh, no, we're definitely serious about this. We want to talk to you about this. We want to hear your vision for what you would do with the college. And I said, okay, my second question is, my son's going to be a senior and in high school, and I do not want to miss one of his events. So what would you expect of me? Because if you expect me up there every night and weekends, then I'm not going there. And they assured me that I would set my own schedule and that as long as I was getting the job done, it would not matter to them, and that there was no reason I should miss any of my son's senior year. So I took the interview and went to the airport interview, and they were going to let me know in 2 or 3 weeks who the top 3 candidates would be. And at 3:30 that afternoon, they offered me the job.
Oh, that gives me the chills.
It gave me the
Such
chills.
a great
I started
story.
crying. They started crying. It was like, how did this happen? It was crazy.
And
just
having
crazy.
watched it all evolve, I mean, it's like, yeah, you are like the perfect person to lead Thomas College.
Thank you. But I got there and I'm thinking, what have I done? I don't even know the difference between director and dean. What's that mean? Who's higher? I had a lot to learn.
Yeah.
I had a lot to learn. But
you
I
had
have
a great
loved it
team.
from day one.
Yeah.
Had a great team. Great support from the board, tremendous support from the board, and from many other people who I've worked with in my life. It was just, it was a learning curve. Obviously, it took its toll from a health perspective when you throw yourself into a very stressful situation, and you're the one that doesn't even know the rules of engagement.
Right.
But I've loved it from the second I got there.
And did you miss any of your son's events?
I did not.
Oh, that's
I don't think I
awesome.
missed anything.
It shows your priorities are family first, which is really great.
Life is short.
Yeah, I know.
You don't get those back.
Right. And you have 2 great sons.
They're sweet boys.
Yeah.
Very proud of them.
Yeah. So if you had to do over again, what would you do differently?
What would I do differently? In the overall pieces, I wouldn't do anything differently. I've loved everything I've done. Not that it was easy. Some of it was very hard, but I've loved it all and so grateful for every opportunity I've had. What I would do differently in hindsight, and which I advise other people to do, is to take better care. I would have taken better care of myself. Because what happens when you're raising children, pursuing a degree, running a company or an organization, I'm preaching to the choir here, Nancy. I'm looking across at you like you know about this.
Yeah, I know. I'm taking a deep breath.
You give 110% to absolutely every aspect of your life except for yourself.
Right.
And so you don't get the exercise you need. You don't get the healthy food you need. You don't get the sleep you need. You take stress right into your body, and eventually your body starts to give you the signals that you're not taking care of yourself. So that's one thing. If I had to do over again, I would try to take better care of myself and understand it's not a failure when you take time for yourself. In fact, it's a really important step.
Right. And it actually gives you even more energy.
It does.
Right?
Of course it does.
I mean, duh.
Yeah, I don't know why. And I think, other things I might do differently, I would hope I would do differently, is not take personal responsibility for everything happening around me like it's my fault somehow. And taking on that kind of that guilt of, oh my goodness, I must have done something wrong, if that person's having a hard time. Or, those are things that they're just not healthy and they're not productive.
I kind of think that's sort of a combination of a woman thing and a mom thing, and we think we can fix it all and make it all better.
I'm sure if I just work a little harder, it'll all be better. I'll fix everything because I'm obviously not working hard enough or, not doing enough.
It's also, I thought you and I are the same age and we come from the same ilk. I was at Colby when you were at Bowdoin, and we got our MBAs at the same time. So we've kind of come up through working in Maine at the same time. And I think we've had to work really hard to get where we are. And so, it was always like, if I put in a few more hours and if I get up on Sunday morning and if I volunteer for one more thing. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, we came of age in the workforce at a time where women were actually getting an opportunity to have significant roles. And just even a few years earlier, it was not the case. So I ended up being the first female in every job I've had.
That's
every
amazing.
job.
Yeah.
And it's nothing I planned, nothing I sought, but it came with some interesting expectations and probably some people questioning.
And people
I don't know.
testing you to see if you've got the medal.
And I do think women, by their very nature, approach things differently, particularly in roles of executive leadership. And sometimes that's a little unnerving because it's different. It's a little softer approach. It's a more inclusive approach. And so sometimes people don't quite know how to take that at first until they get used to it and understand, oh yeah, we'll still come to a decision and we'll still move forward and we'll still do really great things, but it might be a different path than what they'd seen before. So
yeah. Well, I've watched you, and I think you've been just such a great role model for your students and for business people throughout the state. And then the growth. I mean, I've been working with Mike Duguay from the Alphonse Center for Entrepreneurial Excellence.
He's wonderful.
Yes,
he is a wonderful human being.
Yes, he is. Great. And, I've worked with obviously many people on your staff, and it's just a great team. And I think that your personality and your approach has infused throughout the staff and throughout the campus. So,
oh, thank you.
And I think, again, so the whole premise of the podcast is the building your network, both online and in person. And I feel that that is something that you have been doing. Is that something you've done intentionally, or has it happened on its own?
I think at first it was happening on its own. And then I've grown to understand the importance. If I'm going to be a successful president of Thomas College, if I'm going to raise this small college up from its humble roots, I have to really put myself out there, because the only way we'll do it is through building networks, building relationships with the college, and leveraging those relationships to help invest in the future for the students that we serve. So I've grown to appreciate just how important it is. But I think historically, I've always been, I just love people. I absolutely love people. And in every role, when I would have a chance to meet new people, work with new people, do something different with new people, I just thrive. I just wanted it all. Like when I went through Leadership Maine, I wanted to be at every event. I wanted to hug everybody in the class. I wanted to support everybody. We would laugh about it, actually, just because I just found such energy and joy out of it. And one of the interesting stories and a threshold moment and learning for me is when Angus King got elected. I was 9 months pregnant. I was in an appointed position, and I'm realizing, there's a very good likelihood that I will be out of a job, because everybody brings in their own people for those positions. They're plum positions. And I hadn't really thought about it. I'm like, oh my. So I remember calling Kay Rand, who was helping with the transition, and I said, should I give my resignation? And she said, no, you're one of two people that we're keeping. And I said, I am? What I had forgotten is when I was at Central Maine Power doing forecasting, to purchase an econometric model that projected the state's future was way too expensive for anybody in a small firm to have. Central Maine Power had that capacity. I shared those forecasts every time I did them. And one of the guys I shared them with was a guy I didn't know, a guy by the name Angus King, who was running his own company and needed some economic forecast data. So I shared it with him. I shared with a guy by the name of Peter Wiley, who had a car dealership, who was on Angus's transition team. And those were relationships of sort that happened over phone calls. And then I would send them the information, didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
Yep. never met these people, never had met these people, had no idea where they were. And then fast forward to this thing, 9 months pregnant, appointed position, and all of a sudden, because of an act of kindness or generosity years ago, I have a job.
Isn't that something? And that's the way it works.
That's the way it works.
That's the way it works, yeah.
And I think I learned at an early age at Central Maine Power, a very big company at the time. When I left, there were 2,300 employees. It was a big company. And I watched what happened. If you were kind to people at every level, it was amazing how wonderful things would happen in the future. And then you would watch others who might criticize someone or do something that was rather mean, and then find out, oh, that person is related to, someone higher up in the company.
Yeah.
And so I learned a lot from that just be kind to absolutely everybody at every level. And then you don't have to have any regrets because it's going to come back either to haunt you or help you at some point.
That's right. I mean, that essentially is a personal brand, is how you make people feel. It isn't really even what you say. I mean, what comes out of your mouth is irrelevant. It's how you make people feel. And in their heart and in their head, what they think and feel about you is your personal brand. So I think it's really great that you had that self-awareness early on.
Yeah, I was the youngest of 3 girls. I was a whoopsie baby. So my parents were older. I was a good Catholic family. Where'd this baby come from? I was a peacemaker. I adored my sisters, and learned from them. And so I just always predisposed to being kind of happy and inclusive and I truly love people. I love hearing their stories. I just love engaging with them.
And I think people can sense that too, and that you're rooting for them. I know I have always felt that way. So you have conveyed that successfully.
Great.
So what have been some of the obstacles to success in your career, and how have you overcome them?
Obstacles. Well, I was coming up through organizations at a time where there weren't a lot of women in leadership. There just weren't. And so there weren't a lot of role models to follow. And you kind of had to bounce your way and figure your way through. Sometimes it was hard to stick up for yourself. Sometimes it was, hard to convey the things that were important to you, just because it was a changing culture. I mean, a seismic change. I mean, I worked in the energy industry, which was really starting to go through enormous transformation by the time I had been there a few years. And the old models weren't working anymore. So everything had to be reinvented. And then I went to state government at a time very shortly after it had been the first ever state shutdown. And there was no money. There was nothing. I had to take 36 days without pay a year, which I loved because I had a young child at home. So I loved that. I would take Fridays and go volunteer at school. And so it was fine for me, but it was tough for others. And with each of those challenges, you have to find a new way of doing things. That's certainly what we're doing at Thomas College. Higher ed has never been more competitive. It is in a seismic change, enormous change. We are now seeing at an average of 15 colleges closing every year around, New England and whatnot. This is huge. Nobody ever thought that would happen, but it's happening. The demographics are headed down. The number of high school graduates are changing. It's an 11% decline over the next 10 years in the number of high school graduates. And yet, there are 31 institutions of higher ed in Maine. And we're trying to position ourselves to survive and thrive in this new world order. So it's tough.
You've carved out such a niche there at Thomas. I mean, for one thing, I think of JMG. That's a
Yes.
program that I've worked with when they rebranded themselves. And, they support students through high school. And now you have JMG people on campus to continue that support.
Right. That was an idea Craig Larrabee and I cooked up, where we ran into each other at a gas station and we're pumping gas and talking to each other. And he's like, we should really work together. And I'm like, yes, we should. Let's get together. So the two of us, came up with this idea of placing a college level JMG counselor so that when the students came to college, they arrived to a culture that they were comfortable with. They had a group to belong with. They had a mentor in place. And so we were the first in the nation to have a college level, JMG or Jobs for America's graduate specialist, first in the nation.
It makes so much sense.
Well, yes, because where do you lose people in the educational pipeline? You lose them at transition points.
Right.
From college, and from high school to college, from college to the workforce. People get lost without some kind of continuity. And It has worked really, really well.
So that's an example, the relationship with Craig Larrabee, somebody that you knew.
Right.
And you were chatting it up over the gas pump.
Yep. And you have to take advantage of those things. You never quite know what's going to happen.
That's so Maine, too.
Yeah.
I love that.
It is so Maine.
It reminds me of a story that Angus King likes to tell about how he went motorcycle riding once, I think.
I know the story.
He was the governor, and he happened to be in New Hampshire, but he didn't realize that he was pumping gas into his motorcycle. I said, "Oh yeah, I'm the governor of this state." And then he realized he was in the wrong state.
Yeah, I think part of his words were "Welcome to Maine." He was in New Hampshire. That's
Governor
wonderful.
Sununu or Jean Shaheen, whoever was governor at the time, probably didn't like that too much.
Probably not.
Well, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with Laurie LaChance from Thomas College for more of our scintillating conversation. But first, I want to tell you about our new PR Maven listener line. You can now call 207-620-9075 and leave a recorded message, which we will play on the podcast. And you can ask any question, and I will try my hardest to answer your question. And I hope you'll call in, because I love to hear from people. Like Laurie LaChance, I love to hear from my people who are listening to the PR Maven podcast. So right now we'll take a quick break, and we'll be right back. This podcast is all about growing your network in order to strengthen your brand. In my 30-plus year marketing and PR career, I have seen many organizations waste their precious time and money on marketing because they're trying to obtain success without any strategy to achieve their goals. So many organizations and companies suffer from what I call the shiny object syndrome, trying every new fad that comes down the pike. That's why I created the Marshall Plan 15 years ago. We have done over 100 of these plans for clients, helping them to get out of their day-to-day routine to identify their goals, solidify their brand story, focus in on their ideal customer avatar, analyze their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and create a realistic budget and measurement dashboard. We create the Marshall Plan collaboratively with our clients over the course of 3 months. We have a 65-step process to create a highly customized, actionable plan. And it's not like we come in and say, we are the consultants from away and we know everything. Instead, we come in and say, let's sit down at the table with your leadership team and we'll bring our expertise in what's working in PR and marketing. And our client team brings their knowledge of what's working in their organization. And together, we come up with a really amazing plan. For many, it's been a transformative process. I have watched how teams have come together and their faces light up because they have such a sense of accomplishment and they're so excited about the future of their organization. We help our client figure out the best way to implement the plan, sometimes using people within their organization and sometimes with our help. We would love to chat with you about how you can expand your network and achieve your marketing goals with a Marshall Plan. Go to marshallpr.com/marshallplan to learn more about the process, or better yet, send me an email at nancy@prmaven.com and we'll set up a time to talk and get started. And now back to our conversation. Welcome back, and today we're talking with Laurie LaChance, president of Thomas College in Waterville, Maine, and I want to dive back in with a few more questions. Laurie, how do you measure success in your PR, social media, and marketing at Thomas?
Well, ultimate success for Thomas College is our ability to attract students and to attract donors. And those are the two elements that make our college thrive. So we have had to actually really focus on this area because it's not something we're a small college without a lot of resources. And historically, we have not put a lot of money into the marketing aspect. And we all know it's important, but the thing we deliver is an education. So the money has gone primarily to that. And we have grown to understand how critically important it is to really invest not just money, but time and strategy and thought process, to be very deliberate and mindful of how critical it is that we shape our message and share that message in a compelling manner, that we tell the stories that need to be told, that show the world what Thomas is all about. And we've just grown to understand how critically important it is. So the social media world has really given us this chance to do it with less expense than the old print ways and TV and whatnot. So the ultimate measure is, are we able to tell our story in a way that draws students to us, that draws investors to our story, that we understand we are having an impact on the lives of those we serve, and that people are appreciating that. And so for me, I know there are metrics that need to be examined. That's not where I focus. Where I feel that we are accomplishing things is when I go to the grocery store, or I come to an event in Portland, or, I enter any public space and I have people coming up to me. "Oh, we saw your commercial. It's amazing what you're doing. Wow, you guys are knocking it out of the park. How are you doing it through all this? And we heard about your guaranteed job program, and we heard about your partnership with JMG, and you're just doing so many innovative things. We heard about your 3-year degree offering. How are you doing this?" Then I feel like that's the measure of success, when people seem to know what we're doing and seem to feel we are moving forward at a time that's really hard in our industry.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned those things, because I have 2 Thomas grads working on my team. Whitney Raymond, who I always say has one of the best jobs in the state because she travels all over the world on behalf of the State of Maine Office of Tourism. She's been to New Zealand, Australia, Germany, England, France. And so she does tourism marketing on behalf of the State of Maine Tourism Office.
Fantastic.
And she actually has one of the 5-year degrees where she was able to earn her MBA and her BA in 5 years. And she is remarkable. And then Emma Dimmick, who was valedictorian of the graduating class last year, who earned her degree, her Bachelor of Arts degree, in 3 years.
That's amazing.
And we just love Emma Dimmick. She has such a work ethic. She's as smart as a whip. She comes to work with a willing attitude, and I couldn't ask for more. The only thing, and she and I laugh about this, is she's a little bit introverted. And we have a little joke because, as all of you who know me, I'm like a little more extroverted than a normal person. So we always say we need to meet in the middle. Like, I'd like to be a little more shy and she'd like to come out of her shell. So we work with each other. But it's a wonderful relationship, a wonderful mentorship. And we share the Thomas bond because, of course, I have my MBA from Thomas as well. So
a funny story on that. So you have 2 Thomas grads who are doing amazing things. The Alphon Foundation, our biggest benefactor, there are Alphon buildings all around our campus, and they wanted an intern. The first intern they ever had was from Thomas College. We were very careful to match them with an intern that we knew would do well. Not only did he do well, they hired him when he graduated. They came after him, they hired him because his work ethic and his work skills were unparalleled. Fast forward, we started sending him more interns. They hired a second intern, a young man from Jay, Maine, who graduated valedictorian of his class from Thomas, got his master's from Thomas. And so 2 of the Alphon small staff are Thomas grads as well.
That's great.
So we're very proud of that.
And so, say what people may about young people not having a work ethic anymore, I think that that's just not true. These students, they have a good education and they appreciate what they have and they want to bring it every day.
That's the magic of being at Thomas. It truly is. There's no sense of entitlement. People come, for the most part, from fairly humble roots. They were born and raised in families where they had to work from a young age. I started working at the age of 14 in the summers. I worked all my way through. Nothing was handed to me at all. And they work really, really hard to get this college degree that they have. And they want to work. They want to go into a job and they want to make a difference. And it is so humbling to see what they are capable of doing.
That's right.
So I think I have the best job in the world. Yeah. I know Whitney's is good, but I'll put mine against hers any day.
Right. Well, the other thing is when they come to work, they bring what they've learned in the classroom. And so they can teach us too. So, they teach us old dogs some new tricks.
Yeah, I learn new tricks every day.
So it goes both ways. They have a culture of learning and lifelong learning. And actually, we're working through this whole content marketing workbook now as a team at Marshall Communications. And Whitney and Emma are sort of leading us through that process. So, in any job, I guess you need to continue learning, especially with technology moving the way it does. But certainly in marketing and communications, it's changing day by day.
Mm-hmm.
So I do have a great appreciation for Thomas. And also, you mentioned the TV commercial. There is the what I think is the famous TV ad where you are the voice and saying that certain people got there from here. And I was one of the people, and I do get comments about that all the time. I was in a meeting this morning where somebody commented, and then you say you got there from here.
There from here.
Yeah, right.
You can get there from here.
Right, exactly.
That's the whole premise of and it's so funny because it's a simpler commercial. Many of the college commercials are the beautiful flyovers and the gorgeous scenery in a fall day and smiling students with their backpacks having great time because college is always fun, as you know. And this one is just about results. It's like, so-and-so has a position at Sugarloaf. She got there from here, and it shows a picture of her graduating from Thomas.
Of Kim Jordan, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Taylor Jordan.
Taylor Jordan. So-and-so is an executive at Tyler Technologies. They got there from here, and I'm a college president, which is actually some kind of a miracle. And I got there from here, Who would ever think of it? And it's such a simple message. It's not a fancy cinematography.
No,
thing.
They called and asked me for a snapshot of when I graduated.
Yes.
That's what they use as a snapshot. Yeah, so
Nancy
it's
Marshall
awesome.
runs a PR firm. She got there from here. Yeah, it's great.
Awesome.
Yeah, so very simple. And people love seeing people they know.
Right.
Oh, I know so-and-so.
Exactly.
And, or my daughter's on that commercial or whatever. So it's
That
been
goes
fun.
back to what Angus King says about Maine. It's one big, small town.
It absolutely is.
And I always say it's good if you're good and bad if you're bad. But either way, everybody's going to know. So you might as well be good.
Might as well. Choose good.
So, Laurie, how has your network helped you to advance your career?
Oh, there's no question. There's absolutely no question. When I went from Central Maine Power to be appointed, it was because I'd worked with people. I'd worked with people at the state planning office on forecasts. I shared all the information I had. I volunteered. That relationship, Steve Adams, who had been the current state economist, that's who I'd worked with all the time. And he got bumped up to director of the office and said to Jock McCurtain, I can't do this if I can't bring Laurie over. I got to have someone who can fill in for me. And there aren't many people who know how to do forecasting. So that's how that happened. And then the thing with Angus reappointing. And then again, when John Baldacci was appointed, it was another moment. But I'd been working with John and Jack Cashman for years on tax policy because they had been on the tax committee of the legislature. And taxes were my specialty, which sounds ridiculous, but it was. And I'd worked with them on many policy issues and talked through their strategy when he was running, for Congress and then running for governor. And that relationship led me to well, yeah, you can stay on. And I had volunteered over the years and been through Leadership Maine. And when they were looking for a president of MDF, it was relationship saying, okay, Laurie spoke on all of our bus tours and Laurie spoke to Leadership Maine about the economy and, she might be a nice fit for this. And then certainly the Thomas College, I got my MBA there. I'd served on an advisory panel for them for a while, served on their board for a year. And, without that, what the relationship does is it allows you to build trust. And it's unlikely you'll be chosen for a position, particularly a position of leadership, if they don't trust you.
Well, there's the know, like, and trust funnel. So people have to know you, they have to like you, and then they have to trust you to do business with you. So I think one of the great things is Maine people sort of feel like, hey, she's one of us. It's kind of like we can take responsibility for you. And you don't ever lord yourself over anyone either, which I think is just terrific,
One of the best compliments I ever got was from Mike, I think it's Mike Burns that ran Burnsy's Sandwich Shop by the Capitol.
Yeah.
I went in there one day to get some food and he goes, Laurie, you know what I love about you? I said, what? He goes, I heard you talking about the economy. I could actually understand it. He said, I understood what you were saying, and you weren't trying to, show everybody that you're some highfalutin Harvard graduate or something.
How smart you are.
Yeah, smart you are. I actually understood what you were talking about.
Yeah,
and I was like,
feel
that's
the same way.
because I don't know all the theory. I just know the practical part of it.
No, I think you're able to simplify things and make them understandable. So I've heard you speak. I feel the same way as Burnsy does. So what is a resource such as a book, a website, or an app that you have found helpful and why?
It's funny because especially in the summer, if I go to camp, I love to read, and I will take stacks of books, more books than I could ever read in my lifetime. I will take bags of them up. And it's kind of an issue with my husband. He's like, why are you dragging all these books up here? It's like, well, because I don't know which one I'm going to want to read. And in my time since I've become the president of Thomas, I went into an organization in an industry that I wasn't really familiar with. And so the two areas of focus are I only read two kinds of books. I read leadership books or books that will help nurture my soul and health and whatnot. And I read books about the changes in the industry to try to equip myself to lead the place in a way that the college deserves and needs in this crazy, turbulent world of higher ed. So that's all my time. And I have so many books that inspire me, just so many. So I love The Art of Possibility. I don't know if you've ever read that.
No.
It's written by the Zanders, Rosamund and Benjamin, I think. He is the Boston Symphony Orchestra conductor. She is a psychoanalyst. And together they wrote a book on leadership and expanding, like turning everything on end the way you think about things. Instead of painting yourself in a box and thinking, my solutions have to stay within these limits. Why do you put those limits on? Blow the limits off, rethink it, reposition it, and try it. That has helped me so much. Like, why are we constraining ourselves to try to be like every other college? Let's do something totally different. Let's just do it. Why not a 3-year degree? Why not? We can't cut the cost of college. What are you going to do, fire the professors? You can't. You got to have dorms. You got to have all those pieces. They're expensive. It's a labor-intensive industry. Why not shave an entire year off the cost of college? Why does it have to be 4 years? Why do we have to wait till they're 18 and high school graduates?
Right.
We work with 30 high schools and do dual enrollment where they get early college credit. And guess what? Not only does it save them money, it affirms for them that they're college worthy, and it inspires them to go to college.
Makes so much sense. So you never say, oh, it didn't work when we did it the last time, or we've done that before, it didn't work. So none of that. None of that.
No, we have to reinvent totally.
Yeah.
And so books like that.
The Art of Possibility.
I love the book Thrive.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good book.
Yep.
Oh, my goodness. I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
Lean In was one. I don't know if you've ever heard me say about this.
Sheryl Sandberg.
I had to start it 3 or 4 times before I could actually read it because there was a part of it. I would get to the same part and it had happened many of the things had happened to me in my career. And I would just get so discouraged, I had to put the book back down because it was not uplifting. It was like, oh yeah, I've been there, I've done that. Still hurts, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
well, I love the fact that you're such an avid reader, and actually, since I am a Facebook friend of yours, I do see when
you saw my pile of books,
yeah,
didn't you?
Right, yeah, I did. And I also love that you have a camp on a lake because I do too, and that's where I go to sort of nourish my soul.
Sanity. Honestly, walk those dirt roads.
Exactly. Yeah, walk the dirt roads. I listen to podcasts while I'm walking.
It's wonderful.
Actually. And actually, this past summer, I swam a lot because I did the Peaks to Portland
Which
swim.
is amazing.
So I was training for that.
You are an inspiration. I don't know how you do that. I want to get myself to run the mud run next April.
Good.
So you ought to come up. We'll run the mud run.
I don't know.
Dirty Dog Mud Run up at Thomas.
Okay. Oh, that's right. Now, when is that?
It's usually the 3rd or so week in April. And it can either be bitter cold or really hot like it was last year. We make all kinds of mud. You run out through the woods and go through all kinds of obstacles. And all the money raised, there were like 700 people that have been doing this. All the money goes to the recreation for Thomas students so that we can take students to explore the state. It's called Get Out and Live, the GOAL program, where they can try skiing, cross-country skiing, fat tire bike riding, whitewater rafting, things that they might never, ever get a chance to do.
That's right. That's great. I love that. Oh, gosh, there's so much we could talk about, but I think I'm getting a look from Tanner here. So what is one final parting thought you'd like to share with PR Maven Nation today?
Well, I think, Nancy, from my work with you, you've showed me how important it is to build those relationships and to use the resources available through social media, through many different channels, through public appearances, as a way to expand what's possible. And in the role I have now, to be effective for the college that I love, for the students that we serve, I have to keep putting myself out there in new ways. And you and I have talked about this, the ways I may need to grow to be able to deliver on that promise for my students. So So thank you for inspiring me. And I do watch what you do on social media, and it is amazing. And so I guess just getting up every day and understanding if you put yourself out there and you dare to form new relationships, magic can happen, things you'd never have imagined. And all things do become possible. They really do.
Well, I appreciate that so much. And I don't know about you, but I'm having a great time. I think you are too.
Absolutely.
I can't imagine.
Life is too short to do something you don't like, right?
Exactly, yeah. And we work a lot, so we might as well enjoy it too.
Absolutely.
So what is the best way for people to get in touch with you?
Probably email.
Okay.
Even though I get hundreds every day, but it's just LaChance@thomas.edu.
All right. That's simple. But you also have a LinkedIn profile.
I do. I'm not as active on LinkedIn, even though I have like a zillion, whatever you call them, friends or whatever. Connections. Facebook, I'm a little more active on.
Oh, yeah.
But I love to look at everybody's pictures and their families and their camps and their trips and all those things. So yes, but I am on both of those as well.
All right. Well, thank you, Laurie. It has been a wonderful conversation. We may have to continue it again. I'm looking forward to doing a live podcast on the campus at Thomas College in a few weeks with Andrew Silsby from Kennebec Savings Bank.
That's wonderful.
And
look forward to that.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed my affiliation with Thomas, and I feel really strongly about its mission.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Good. So I hope everyone in PR Maven Nation has enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, and I hope you have a great week, PR Maven Nation. That's it for this week's episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and if you feel that you've gotten value out of today's conversation, consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or whatever app you're using to tune in. If you haven't subscribed yet, you should do so. I release a new episode each week, and subscribing will make sure you get an alert when there's a new episode. You can also join the PR Maven Nation by going to prmaven.com/nation and clicking join. It's free, and it's a great community of like-minded individuals who are all looking to learn and grow from one another. If you have an Alexa-enabled device, be sure to add the PR Maven Marketing Minute to your daily flash briefing menu. Thanks again for listening, and have a great rest of your week, PR Maven Nation.